What are you reading right now?
I am currently reading a book called Supreme Injustice. It's about these two young men that's adopted and they're twins and they go to separate different homes with like different ways of living. And basically, it's a good book, but basically, it's like about different aspects of each other's lives, I guess. So one of the brothers is living like in poverty, and one of the brothers is like living a good life, but want to do bad things and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically what I'm reading.
What drew you to this book?
The cover actually, because the cover is like the background. I'm thinking it's gonna be like kind of like because I'll read books that I can relate to. So I'm thinking it's gonna be like a book like about juvenile life or something like kids going to jail and stuff like that. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I picked up on this book.
Gray, what are you reading right now?
It's called Cheese City Boys.
Ooh,
It's about like a dude that stayed out in Miami and going through a lot right now.
what made you pick up the book?
Just reading the back on the back page of it, it sounded like a good book.
Mhm.
I was just gonna read one chapter of it and I should start getting more and more into the book.
That's the best kind, right? The kind you can't put down. I love those.
Yeah,
What?
and that's what I also kind of do too. I like before I read the book, I'll read the back of the book. I can like get the
Mhm.
knowing like what I'm getting myself into a little bit. So yeah, that's what I do too.
So I kind of wanted to know, it seems like you guys are talking a lot about books that you can relate to. Is that usually the draw for you? Is it like modern? What's the big draw for you, Red? What's the kind of book you usually like to read?
Yeah, I say books I can relate to because it's like I don't know. It's like me listening to music. Like I wouldn't listen to nothing that I wouldn't like. You feel me? Or I wouldn't read nothing I wouldn't like. So it's all about like relating to a character, a certain character in the book for me.
Gray, how about you? How do you know that this book is for you? Is it usually a character? Is it the storyline? Is it because it's relatable?
I would kind of say relatable more towards like science fiction and stuff.
Okay.
I like I like to get the image in my head of the book I'm reading. And if I can't do that, I'm not gonna read the book more likely.
Is it usually, and you can just kind of tell me, do you usually go for a more modern setting? Or do you like, I know Gray, you just said you like sci-fi. Are there other types that you read? Sci-fi, fantasy, more realistic? What's your favorite?
I would say fantasy more realistic.
Red, how about you? What's the big genre for you?
I say realistic drama,
Mm,
probably a little bit fiction and fantasy, but I more so do like drama and realistic.
hmm Yeah, drama's a big one for sure. Like that actiony stuff, maybe. Or is it more about the character interactions?
Yeah, the character for sure.
That's cool because most of the time when I talk to young guys, what they like to read, it's just action, 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 and I'm like, okay, but what about the people? And they're like, eh. So that's awesome that you're like, these characters are why I'm reading this book. So you don't get that very often.
I really find it interesting the idea of the twin book, where like you come from one place and you're separated and you can live completely different lives.
Mm.
And I just wonder, like, do you feel, Red, like there's one twin that you kind of feel like you relate to more, either because of their environment or because of the way that they think?
Yeah, I can relate to one of the characters, like how they're living and how they think too. So yeah, I think I can relate to one of the twins, but the other twin, I just feel like he's trying to be something he's not.
But is that interesting to kind of figure out like what's going to happen? Like, so I think it's interesting that like I would feel this way too. I would relate to one character more than the other. But is one character more interesting to read, or do you feel like you try to like read through one story to get to the next?
Mm.
Both of them like pretty interesting, but the other one is like more detailed and like I can relate to it more than the other one. So I feel like the other character is more realistic to me because I can relate to him. But the other one is not so bad, but the other one is better to me because I can relate to it.
Thinking about like science fiction and fantasy, um, do you find that it's easier to kind of understand characters when they're in a really made up kind of world?
Yeah, it's easier for me to understand and get a good picture of how the person is in a sci-fi or fantasy book.
There's like this extra freedom that you get from being in a fantasy world, right? Like because rules don't apply strictly, I really enjoy how characters develop and act. And I think it's really interesting then to kind of look at our lives a little
Mhm.
and like, what is real life? What are like, everybody has different standards and rules too, you know? And I think it's an interesting way to look at how we live our own lives and our own little fantasies too. I think that because it's really hard to be straddling that world between being a child and an adult, where you have all these responsibilities, where you're held accountable for a lot of things, but you don't have access to all the adult things in your life. It is kind of like living a little bit of a fantasy, you know, like
Mhm.
everybody has expectations, but you don't have to do quite everything on your own yet. And it's a way of kind of living and exploring in your world. I don't know, this just turned into me
So,
thinking about
but to
discussion.
piggyback though, Meredith, on that, do you do you gentlemen feel like you usually gravitate towards young adult books, or do you usually go to adult books when you're reading? Red, you can start out on that one.
For me, I would have to do both. Yeah, I'm gonna just say I could do both.
Okay. Great. How about you? Are you usually a young adult reader or an adult reader?
I would say I'm a young adult reading.
When you first got into reading, you picked up a book and there was a book that stuck with you. Like, what book would you say that would be?
The Magic Treehouse series. Two little kids that would go into their treehouse and they would go on some missions. And it was like a fantasy, and in my mind, I could picture them doing everything they were saying in the book. What they were doing, where they were going. I could picture that in my mind.
I love that idea that like there is an accessible escape so close to your house, right? They went out in their backyard and they went in a treehouse and then they traveled through time.
Another question, did the twins ever reunite?
Spoilers, Carl.
Whoa, spoiler.
I wasn't gonna ask like what happened with that. I just want to know, do they reunite?
I can't elaborate because I didn't get to that part yet. So.
There you go. That was a really well played answer right there. I can't elaborate. Very
It's crazy because it's like this number one. This not even like the whole little part of it. It still got like 2 more books to it. So this just the beginning. So it's more to come. But yeah, I can't elaborate to your question.
Just started reading it today. It's really good.
And can you show me the cover again? Oh, awesome. Is it scary?
Sort of.
Mm-hmm. What made you want to read that book?
Seems like a horror type book and like a mystery type book.
Is that usually what you like to read?
Mystery, yeah. I figured I'd give reading some different type of genre of book a try.
Mhm. So Green, what are you reading there?
Called Cost of Betrayal.
What's that book about?
It's mainly about money and Puerto Ricans and a lot of different type of races. And I just started yesterday, but it's pretty good. But it's not nothing that I was interested in. I'm not a fan of weapons and stuff. but someone in the other pod kind of told me that it was a really good book, so I tried it, and it's actually pretty good.
This book is called All Eyes on Guns. It's like an urban fictional book. He basically on the run for FBI murder. He's been on the run for like a long time. And he basically like just gotta sell drugs like a big cartel just to survive. It's 4 books, it's a 4-book series, and I'm on part 2. I read a lot of books here though. I read like 40 or 50 books here.
So what's your favorite kind of book to read?
Like this kind, like
Urban fiction?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite author?
K1. I can relate more to his books, like understand more to his books, basically.
This in particular is a 4-part series. Like, I can't imagine something that sounds that full of action and like emotional work going 4 books. Like, do you just tear through these? I would think that like I'd be flipping pages like crazy.
I read a lot. I read like every night before I go to sleep.
Tell us about your favorite book that you've ever read.
The Outsiders.
The Outsiders? Really?
That's one of my first books I ever read, like read cover to cover.
That's a classic.
And the movie too. I like
Yeah.
the movie. Only boy, I was just bored and I just like wanted to read something, I guess. I ain't had nothing else to do, so I just read the book, and I really ain't know books can be like interesting. I ain't know it could be like fun to read. Like it was fun to read the book. Like I liked it reading after that. And then since then I just find books that I like to read and just read them.
Do you feel like it was a character that you related to, or was it like the whole story that kind of
Yeah, it was
got
just
you?
the whole story. It was just like the whole story about it. I ain't think books was like that. I ain't think books was like that.
So it's just like, this is like what makes librarians cry right here.
The outside it's just like a bunch of kids. They in the neighborhood, they in poverty, and they just like come together just to form like they basically all friends. And like the rich kids don't like them. So basically it's like two gangs, but it's not gangs because it's both friendships. It's like a group of friends and a group of friends. And one group, they just don't like each other, basically. And they get in a fight and they go on a run. And a lot of stuff happened after that. They end up living like far away in a abandoned church, eating chocolate, gotta cut their hair, and just live off bread and water and chocolate.
That sounds like both living the dream and living the nightmare. I'm not sure. Eating chocolate forever, that's kind of, I'd be all right with that, I guess.
Yeah. Reading books, that's how they was eating chocolate and reading books. That's how they got their time passed, being in the church all day.
So really living the dream, eating chocolate and reading books. Got it. Check.
That book's been around for a long time.
It's a movie about the book too.
Did you
Have you
like the
seen it?
movie?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I like it.
What did you like better?
The book.
Yes.
The book always give it more details.
Librarian dreams right here.
What character would you say you could relate to the most? Thinking back on it.
Only boy, the main character.
And why is that?
He like the youngest. He like the youngest, and it just like I don't know. He just like look up to his brothers and stuff. Like he just he feel real. He feel like he ain't got nobody else but him and his best friend. He just feel like all alone. He's there for him, basically. Like it's just me and myself. That's why I like the book.
How many books would you say that you've read?
Like my whole life.
Yeah, like your whole life.
I don't know, probably like 100. To me, that's a lot. A lot of people don't read books. A lot of people really don't read books.
You sure don't.
But I read books.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of books. I read.
Do you know how many books I read last year? It's gonna shame me as a librarian. I read five books last year. So you're doing way better than me.
I don't know if I finished 5.
I've read like 5 books in like a week.
You prefer to read in series then? So you can stay in a story for longer?
Yeah, the same characters. Yeah, that's what I really like. On the Come Up is good. And Dear Martin, both of them is good books though. But I like On the Come Up better than Dear Martin, I think.
What did you like about that one?
On the Come Up, just trying to make it like out. She was just trying to make it out of poverty. She was just trying to do the best she could and make it. Then it just show you how like the industry, how they try to, I don't know, can I ask? But when they try to get her to rap and stuff, and she thinks she gonna rap her own stuff, and then they try to make her rap something that she didn't write down. That's I liked that too, because that really happened in real life. Like it ain't how people think it is all the time. Like so when you sign stuff, it can turn either way.
They didn't want her to, write down her struggles and her.
They wanted her to portray an image that she wasn't. They wanted her to be something that she was not. I wouldn't listen to what they were saying, trying to make me do. I would be who I am. I ain't, get what I'm saying? That's what's so, it made me happy, I'll say that.
One of the things I thought was really cool about that book was the relationship that she had with her family, but like especially how people treated her because of her dad, because he was a rapper before her and just kind of like trying to step out of his image. That was something that I thought was really interesting about the book. But it seemed like people treated her differently because of her father.
She was trying to make her own name and fulfill and like live up to his name at the same time.
Yeah.
It was kind of difficult.
Did you read her other book, The Hate You Give? Did you read that one too? Of the two, which did you like better?
About the hate you give.
What made you like that one better?
That book is realistic too, but it's just that The Hate You Give is something that's really going on like to this day.
And Dear Martin kind of follows that same kind of pattern, right?
Yeah.
Because in that one, the main character's name is Justice, right?
Yeah, they just got against police brutality, basically.
And Justice goes to jail, is that right? And is writing a journal to Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to read that one. It's been on my to-read list for a long time. But that to-read pile gets really long when you only read 5 books a year.